Hi everyone, welcome to Harper Broadcast. I'm Anushka Verma, and today is a very special day. We have with us in conversation Kanza Javed and Aanchal Malhotra, two of my personal favorite writers. These are the writers. I admire their work, the way that they're writing about South Asian stories and they're bringing it out to people. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And Kanza's new book, What Remains After a Fire, has recently come out. It's an unforgettable book and it's an unputdownable book. I devoured. I think that would be the better word for it. This within a day or two. All the stories are brilliantly written. All the characters are so nuanced, so layered. And we could not have a better person than Archel to carry this conversation forward because all of her books have these nuances about humanity, about people and their stories. So this is going to be a great conversation, and I'm pretty sure the Harp broadcast audiences are going to appreciate this. So let's just dive right into it. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. So I just request Kanza and Achal to please carry this forward.
Thanks so much, Anushka, and it's really lovely to be here with Kanza. We have a very long friendship, actually. I've known her for well over a decade and a half, I think. So it's really exciting to be talking to her about her new book. So, shall we start, Kanza?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I want to actually go back to the beginning of What Remains After a Fire. This book is much darker than your first book, Ashes, Wine, and Dust, in shade and in subject matter. So can you take us back to maybe do you have a moment of conception for the book?
You're the first person who said this to me that this new book is so much darker. And you've known me from my very first page. That was 10 years ago with Ashes, Wine, and Dust. And then I got to ruminate and introspect and understand really, is it darker? But I think it was just the space I was in at that
Mm,
time. I was noticing lots of themes of dislocation, displacement, trauma, grief, and rupturing of identity, abandoning a city, moving to a new city which
mm,
refuses to adopt you, and all of those things. I think they just crept into my skin. And I would say this book is more inward looking in a way. I didn't go out setting it to be darker or grisly or grotesque in any way. It was just an organic process. I was capturing literally what I was observing around me and relayed and communicated that, translated that on a page. And then it gave birth to this particular collection. I was working on a larger prose during my MFA period, and that manuscript was not speaking to me for 3 years. And I started writing short stories on the side as a mode of self preservation, just to write something. And when you write a short story, it kind of gives you a sense of accomplishments. You have done something, it's economical with words, you can move on to the next story. And writing short stories is like visiting a room, having dinner with a bunch of flawed friends for a moment, and then leaving the house party and moving on to the next apartment. So that kind of was exciting for me, that I didn't have to spend years entrapped with these characters like you do in a novel. Although the collection took 6 years, but I spent just it was brief affairs with these particular characters, 6 months per story, 3 months per story. And then after I'd written 3 to 4 stories and they started getting a good response in literary magazines, then I started examining them in a deeper fashion and saw that there was this fire analogy that kept springing up, and then it was centered around women. And then very consciously, deliberately, I set out to actually write a short story collection, but very inward looking, kind of short story collection, which I think some might deem it darker. I mean, I don't think a lot of readers say that they rise out of this book feeling a bit uncomfortable and unsettled because it's so unflinching. You look at reality just as it is. And I think that's what fiction should do, honestly. You paint
mm.
what you see.
I don't know if it made me feel uncomfortable, but I also don't know if it's because I know you so well and I've seen the changes in your life over the last decade. So I do feel like there's, I mean, not to say like the story is a direct, representation of what you're living, but I can see the current, right?
Yes.
I can say, so I don't think it's dark in a bad way. I think for me, like when I first read it, it was kind of like this immense growth, right?
Oh,
Because I had known Ashes, Wine, and Dust
yes.
so intimately, and I mean, Miriam's story was so much of a coming of age story, and in this, there are so many different coming of ages, but
Hmm.
it's not the same. So for me, I think the darkness wasn't a bad thing. It was kind of like a sort of self-realization of the
Yeah.
potential of fiction,
Yes.
right? Is a small housekeeping question. Is the anthology arranged in a particular way?
Yes, 100%. So when you're writing a short story collection, it has to have some recurring theme or some recurring symbol or some characters which keep appearing once again if they're recurring. So there has to be a similar pulse in the stories. There can't be a bunch of stories which have absolutely no resonance to each other. So it could be a theme of displacement, or it could be women or child narrators or something like that. So for me, it was, of course, the fire imagery which kept emerging page after page. It was very unconscious, but then it was deliberate. After four stories, I realized I was doing this thing and I must be doing this willfully, and then female characters and of course themes of female oppression and all of those things. But yes, the short story collection needs
Hmm.
to have a running pulse for it to work.
I also saw it as it had waves.
Yes, there's a movement.
There is movement, there's rhythm, um, and I think every time something gets again, like for lack of a better word, dark, there is a bit of lightness, even if it's just a
Absolutely.
flicker, right? Like a tiny little flicker, even if it's just a flame, right?
Yes.
There is a movement to it.
Yes,
Um,
that was
hmm,
deliberate as well. See, you can't just have stories of broken people having broken lives, and then there's no glimmer for the audience to hold on to. So, your responsibility, I would say, as a writer, is not just to fracture emotionally, your devastate your reader just for the sake of it. Then I feel then that's very shock value kind of a thing. Because
hmm,
see, in these dark moments, also, if you're going through something, you might see something so beautiful at a bus stop or a train station, and that can light up your
hmm,
day. So I wanted to give those small little threads of happiness to the characters for them to exist and for the reader
hmm,
to feel that there might be light and it might be a faint kind of a glimmer, but there might be hope at the end. So resilience was important for these female characters for me.
hmm. There are symbols also throughout the
Yeah.
book, like totems almost.
Hmm.
There's, of course, like fire and the mustard leaves, the empty bottles, a bit
Yes.
whimsical as well.
The
There are
worry doll as
ghosts,
well. Yeah.
right? And then there are very intangible totems like loneliness and poverty and religion, sacrifice, anger, duty, obligation, agency, separation. And in many ways, these really showed us the fragmentation and erosion of these characters' inner lives. I wanted to know if you could speak to these totems. Why was it necessary for these things? And
Hmm.
sometimes they seem almost absurd, because
Yeah.
you're reading a story and then suddenly Bilkis Bano says you have to trap a
Yeah.
ghost in a bottle. And
Yes.
Nuri says, "Well, what do you mean? I
What
don't
does it look
understand." And then
like?
she ends up and she says that it looks like a ghost in a bottle. So can you speak to why these things were so necessary to build the kind of emotional and physical architecture of the collection?
Yes. So, when I was in the US, so we were speaking earlier about how you feel that there's a movement and growth in my writing. So I wrote Ashes, Wine, and Dust on a whim. I feel it was a story I felt I was born with. I had to tell. I had to tell. Of course, it took 7 years to write, and the drafting, you were there through the process, the embryonic state of the book. But then I went back to do my MFA to reverse engineer and to understand how I actually wrote the first book and how to take this writing thing a bit seriously. So I think you can see that kind of growth through the MFA program, learning about what conflict is and all of those things. So when I was there, so my relationship with Pakistan has always been, it's a beautiful lover. You keep going back to the lover, or it's like a mother who loves you, but she would occasionally slap you. So like an abusive mom, you love, but then I went to America, which became like this nice foster adoptive mother who gives you a lot of money, but keeps telling you that she did not give birth to you and that's not your womb. So I was feeling this emotional and physical displacement, which caused deep, deep rupture in my identity. And I would cling on to a lot of objects. And I thought that maybe this would make me feel better. I've heard scented candles work. Maybe that will make me feel better. I was having insomnia. I thought, okay, lavender, something like that will make me feel. I got a worry doll. Maybe that will make me feel better. So I would latch onto those things because when even in the stories there's some times when dialogue is not doing enough, when language is not doing enough, and you're finding a new grammar of belonging and you hold on to objects. And Bilki's Begum holding on to bottles because it kind of reminds her of an unfinished business, a past, and all of those things. Zara with a worry doll constantly putting her under the bed, hoping she's going to absorb some of that trauma. So I like when my characters engage with these objects and they become like characters, like emotional reservoirs. And it's so this is all symbolic stuff, which I enjoy, but I also look at it in a very figurative fashion as well. I I like universal synchronicities. When you keep seeing one particular bird over and over again, when you see one particular kind of a color over and over again, I'm a little hippie like that. So I wanted to add a little bit of a token in a symbol somewhere for the reader to constantly kind of pick it up and to test the intelligence of the reader. So they would say, for instance, in It Will Follow You Home, okay, they're speaking about the swan. Okay, there's a figurine of the swan. Okay, then the swan emerges out of nowhere. What does that mean? Why would she pick that instead of something else? So, two things. One is, of course, I like when characters latch on to when all language fails, when all means of communication fails. I like when they hold on to objects and that becomes their ecosystem. And secondly, it's a very structural choice as well. I like playing with metaphors. I love analogies. Um, I like when that coexists with
Mm.
characters.
I mean, sort
So
of the bread and butter of a short story writer as well, right?
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Even in novels as well. For instance,
Mm.
we'll speak about setting also, but setting for me is really vital. But at the same time,
Mm.
in Ashes, Wine, and Dust, now I feel like that was so long ago that I don't remember the small nuances from that particular story. I'm pretty sure there must have been some object that she must be married to
Yeah.
emotionally.
And you know, it's so funny that earlier in the conversation you said something about broken people, right? And I'm pretty sure there was like a line in Ashes, Wine and Dust that said like broken people find other broken people. Like Mariam said this when she was in America.
That's that's amazing that you remember.
I spent years with that
You
book,
edited
you
it.
know?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it felt like such a pivotal book at that time, right? Because it I don't know why I feel like because I was also abroad and you were going abroad and some it's like burnt in my brain actually.
Yeah, and we were so young. Yes.
We were so young. It's true. It's true. One other thing you mentioned right now is cities. And
Yes.
there are so many, like, I've written down these lines. Like, firstly, Lahore is a delicious city. And then something so innocent that we all do when we go to the West or any other part where which is not our own is like speaking in the language that you
Mm-hmm.
grew up with and a sort of um, desperation to hear it, to embody it, to feel its contours, you know, to sit in it when you've never done that before. And then there was something that you wrote that says cities are unfaithful
Yes.
and no one begins again unless they have to. And I
Yes.
remember this is unconnected, but a few years ago, I did an interview with someone about partition, and she said, you know, my grandmother said that people only migrate for poverty or love.
Mm,
Like, either they're in love or they are facing poverty, and so they must go somewhere and leave home. And those are the two reasons that she
yeah.
stated.
In Worry
And
Doll
it,
as well, when
mm,
they have the blizzard and when she hates the snow, she has always deemed snow as this romanticized Bollywood affair and everything.
mm,
And then she hates the snow, gets stuck in the blizzard. So nobody leaves home and the comfort of the
mm,
courtyard and the folds of their family to shovel 6 inches of snow in a country whose language they're still kind of understanding, and to feel like a displaced creature in your 20s and 30s. So you have to be morbidly unhappy in your home country to do that. So cities for me, even in Ashes, Wine and Dust, even in What Remains After a Fire, setting for me is never just a backdrop. It's very integral. So if my mind
mm,
conceives the character first, then the setting emerges later, because I know it has to
mm.
transform and evolve as the narrative is. It's literally the back of the narrative spine for me. Really
Wow,
important.
that's so interesting. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I wonder if you could maybe pick some vignettes or something from the book where you can talk about the setting and the characters, because that's such a
How it's evolving.
fascinating way. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and also I feel like a man might forget about something. You might repress trauma, you might forget it, but cities are like these faithful witnesses and observers. The scars
Mm.
exist in the cities, so that for me is really crucial as well. So I think my Bones Hold a Stillness would have lots of setting. Which setting should I speak about? Is there any story in particular which resonates with you? All of them have
You know,
like so much
they're really different.
setting.
I mean, I was going to ask a different question about this story, but
Sure.
it's stray things do not
Yes,
carry
carry a
a
soul. Yeah.
soul. It was too difficult for me to read. It was so hard, and I kept.
I knew when I was writing it, I knew when I was writing it that if, so usually I'm plagued with self-doubt and all of those things which writers are born with, that, oh, I can do better. Or if you're, when you're reading something, you insert a line or there, or you say, okay, I could have changed this word for this. But Stray Things, when I was writing, I knew that this story is going to haunt the reader. So I'm glad
I
that it
didn't.
sat with you.
I mean, I've read the book like 3 times now, but
Oh, wow.
well,
Yeah, sure.
but when I was reading it to at the beginning when you sent it to me, it was so hard because, and I don't want to give it away, but as someone who lives with animals on an everyday
Oh
basis,
my God, yeah.
it was I wanted to just skip it because the
Yeah.
more you read it, it's of course it's about patriarchy and it's
Mhm.
women's lives and the choices that they make and the choices that are made for them. And this particular story is told through the eyes of a young boy, and
Yes.
that boy's innocence,
Yes.
and the way he talks about things with softness, and then the setting. It's so it's contrasting, not just contrasting. It's sort of maddeningly contrasting, and it really hurt me.
Yeah.
Talk about how you built it.
Yeah, a funny story first. My agent wanted to begin the book with Stray Things. I was like, really? I don't think that's a good option to give that.
Though I
I,
think Rani is quite
but
a
the
intense beginning.
yeah, but slaughtering of animals in the very first page, when the reader actually meets the book for the first time, they look at the cover, they read the jacket, and they read the first page. So I said, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's leave that for later because it's a bit
Yeah.
dark,
You
like
have
I
to
said.
build you have to build up to it,
Absolutely. You
like
have to build up to it.
you have to go through Annie's story, you have to go through this Camilla and
And
Aisha's stories. You have to get there.
yeah,
And
when you,
even
by
when
the,
you're there, you're not
yeah,
prepared for
you're
it.
not prepared for it. Absolutely. But yes, so writing this story, when I moved back to Pakistan after 5 years, it was a very deliberate decision to go back to seek happiness again and to, of course, finish the book again. I,
But I
as
love how you're saying these very like truth
random,
bombs and like, yeah, I just wanted to be happy again, so I left
it
America.
is, it is what it is. So I started noticing, of course, the culling of the stray population of dogs in Pakistan, and especially coming from a country which is due to religious sentiment they do not feel very emotionally tied to a dog, and it's still deemed strange when somebody has a dog in the house and everything. And I did my best to stop um, people in my street to stop doing this thing. And then I started diving into the deeper layer of why it happens and why people do it, and especially the men who do it and how they do it so callously without thinking. And then I realized that actually moral values are for people with certain kind of a privilege. When you're poor, when you have 5 kids to feed and a servant quarter back home, and they say, hey, here's a rifle and we're going to give you 100 rupees per dog. They're like, oh, sure. Oh, I'll do it in a second because my children are starving. So that kind of that was the beginning pulse for me to begin writing this book. And then, we have read so many stories in this collection and other in which we see patriarchy and how women are navigating through these regressive spaces and how they're understanding control and authority. But I wanted to do something different. I wanted to bring in a very vulnerable child, a male child, a 9-year-old boy, and show transmission of patriarchy, how it's inherited, and how the child could be, like you said, so innocent, so sensitive, but at the same time, he can be an offender as well. So he's a victim and an offender, and kind of show this movement and transmission of patriarchy, how it can travel from father to son. Then he's going to inflict it on his wife. The wife is going to take it out on the children. Then she's going to prefer the male child. Then the male child is going to do because that's the reality that he was born with. So that was pretty much the conception of Stray Things. That this time I wanted to pick up this much explored and examined topic of patriarchy, but I wanted to show it through a lens of a child who is actually, it's happening in real time for the audience. And the audience can see it. The audience can't protect the child, but the audience kind of feels for the child because he's a victim himself. And then, yes, wanted to just portray that kind of vulnerability. And then of course, the stakes are high because I don't want to give away, but he falls in love with
Hmm.
a dog.
Well, what happens when characters make choices that you didn't make for them?
That rarely happens. So that happened a lot in Ashes, Wine, and Dust. I was a gardener. I knew what the story was. I would plant the seed and then I would start writing. It was very tra la 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 la
Hmm.
la la. And I liked that process as well. Now
Do you
with
think
time,
it's because the novel is a larger space, you have time to explore, and a character has time to walk through the novel by itself?
100%, and they can
Yeah.
surprise you. So when it comes to a short
Mm-hmm.
story collection, because you know that you can't play around too much,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that there's just a host of characters, and if you're introducing a character, you have to not resolve, but that character has to have a purpose. They cannot be there for the sake of it. If the clouds are changing color, there has to be a purpose for that and all of those things. So you have to be very architect about it. So I would map the story out
Mm.
completely. I knew the beginning, I would know the end, I would know the middle muddle as well. So there was not really any room for me to be surprised, to be honest, when it came to this story. It was a very surgical process. It was fun to write and to explore it, but I just had to be very cautious with making sure that the story doesn't drag too much
Mm.
or that the story is not too short and all of those things. Yeah.
Mm. To be honest, that's kind of how I am as well, particularly when I'm writing oral history interviews that are shorter.
Yes.
A novel, I don't think you can fully predict ever,
No, never. You can't fully
because it,
predict.
it lives in your subconscious for such a long time. You mentioned patriarchy as an inheritance or something that's carried as a burden, maybe as something you have to
Generation.
choose. Right, you have to choose, you will yourself against it, act against it sometimes. The other thing I think alongside that runs through the book is the perception of women by
Hmm.
others, but also
Yes.
by themselves, often
Yes.
leading to um, muddled perceptions of oneself, misery as well. But I think it's so complex, isn't it? And again, I wrote down a few lines, and I wondered whether these were your characters talking or whether you were talking, because we have had so many of these conversations, and in fiction this happens, right? Your life becomes very seamlessly entwined with what you're writing. So
100%. Yeah.
But they are poignant things, right? Like you write, old age comes faster for Pakistani women.
Yes.
No, what does that mean?
Well, I'm glad that you're. I'm glad, or a little, I feel very vulnerable that there are a few lines here and there, like, oh, that's Kansa talking. That's not the character talking. But
Again, yeah,
yes,
I wonder, it's because I know you so well, right? Like as
yeah,
I'm reading this, like okay, first time I may have read it, second time I read it, I was like, I'm reading it in your voice,
sure,
right? I
yeah.
can hear you.
Makes sense. Yes. So for that particular line or for that particular story as well, one of the reasons the character in It Will Follow You Home escapes is because she's reaching that tender age of 24, 25, in which she should be married and have children. And she's looking at Facebook with her friends having children, and she makes this drastic decision that I'm going to go um, to America to start my life, and she's morbidly unhappy there again. So the line just literally means that the minute the minute you cross your early 20s, you should be married, settled, have children. Other than that, you're just like you're either depressed or you're just like ambling through life and childless leftover woman kind of a
And then
thing.
keeping this in mind, I know it's a light-hearted thing that we were joking about, but keeping this in mind, can you talk about Aisha and Kamila's story?
Yes. So that story, that is a dark story. That I will agree
Yes, but it's
with
it's
the murders.
connected, you know,
Yeah,
it's connected.
100%. Yes. So you will see that I didn't want all the stories to have the same like rhythm and same resolution, and the characters I wanted to have them wanted them to have like different strands of personality and emotional interiors. So where there was this unnamed narrator and It Will Follow You Home, where she makes the decision to liberate herself by moving out of the country, then you have people like um, and the character for Aisha and Kamala and Carrie Tall, who do the right thing by the standards of society. They marry, they have children, and there's a line which says fertility is the only currency the minute you get married. And then we kind of show their grief and their despair and their entrapment as well. So very catch 22 kind of a situation. So the answer, which I guess this collection is asking, that what exactly is home for a woman? What exactly is happiness? Is it just a state of mind? Do you create it yourself? Did the society brainwash you into thinking happiness was one thing, it's the other thing? Even in Worry Doll, where it's a woman who left a very high paying PR job to go to Maryland, has an apartment, a very well qualified husband, and she's also trying to find herself in these heaps of snow and this apartment odor and everything. So, yes, so pretty much different women, different setting, different kind of stratas of society, just trying to just negotiate
And
space
then
for
I think
themselves.
in another story, again, somehow connected, it says, without breasts, without ovaries, a woman
Yes,
is an empty
Bilki's
thing.
big. Yes,
And
that
then,
was.
correct. And so I got thinking, well, what's a whole person? What's a whole woman? That's a question you ask as well, right? There's no whole woman in this house.
Yes.
So what is a whole woman?
Yeah, honestly don't even know if the collection ever answers the question. So you open this for the audience so that then they can reflect and be a little meditative about their existence as well. What exactly is a whole woman? Bilkis Begum did everything right, but ended up getting breast cancer. And then she was like an unfinished person for the husband, and he was on to the next. And then Aisha in Carry It All plays her card exactly how the society preaches, and still ends up becoming a loser in a way. In Worried All as well, in Rani as well. She married, then she left her husband, and all of those things. So yeah, this is pretty much the question that we're asking from women. How do we win?
Does Ruby become a whole woman?
I I do believe so, to be honest, but then there's a cost in a way because she married young, had a child, then had a sick husband, then a child who's a little sick as well. But then when she chooses herself, she's considered to be very selfish in a way because
Yeah.
she does sideline her child a little bit. So I honestly don't know if I is Ruby. I don't know. She was a really good character. I really enjoyed. I didn't like what happened, but You guys should read the book.
Mm.
But yeah,
Mm. And I think
she was very feisty, very fierce.
yes, yes, she was. She was. And I think for me, that story is actually so vibrantly written, right?
It was
That
very
was so
chaotic,
so
yeah.
funny because well, it's chaotic, but I think it was so it really encapsulated the city, right? Like two different dimensions of the city, the
Yes, I'm
two
glad. Yeah.
inequalities. And I think it's obviously I could see it before myself because you're talking about the lawns, and then
Yeah.
you're talking about this little barsati that they
Yeah.
have with
Yeah.
the sink outside, and I
Yeah.
know what that looks like. I know what both
Yes.
those things look like. So it was such a um like the details
Familiar.
are so
Yeah.
yes, yes. And I wonder, we're going to get to like some of the more serious themes in a bit, but I wonder what is it about the everyday, the familiar, the banal that offers inspiration for you, because you have a really perceptive eye. Like you
Yes.
look for not just imagery of the everyday, but also the sounds and the stillness and the movement of the everyday, like little things, right?
Hmm.
So, what is it that offers abundance for you to write fiction from the everyday?
Honestly, I think so that the daily life offers a lot. If you go to a party, notice the awkward silences, the confrontations, the stiff smiles, and the polished faces. I write everything down, from different seasons to the kind of bird I notice to leaves changing colors. So, one thing is that I'm very observant in real life as well. So, writing about the kind of flowers or which flower was imported when to Pakistan. So, all of those things are really important to me. And then I it doesn't have to be, see, an epiphany moment, or a story doesn't have to have a very grand kind of a space. I like when epiphany moments can happen when a character is just literally washing dishes, or a character is driving a car and is stuck in a blizzard and she realizes that, okay, I am kind of done with this marriage. I feel that the reader sees themselves in these familiar spaces. And a lot of the readers tell me about this book in Ashes as well, that she really knows Lahore. Lahore is a character. I feel seen. The way she writes about Lifebuoy soap and Pond Scream. And how do you do it? And it's really natural and organic because whatever I observe, I literally translate on paper. And it's because I'm very, very well connected to the setting. So for me, it's I know writing fiction is all about imagination, but I have to be in that physical space for to write. So if you tell me, because I write something about Italy, I need to go there for 6 months. I need to see it, observe it, look at the daily dealings of people, and then I'll capture it on paper for it to become as real and accurate as possible. So the reader can see themselves in that particular space.
So then,
So,
what does distance do for you? Like going away from
mhm.
that
Oh
landscape, being
God,
in
yeah.
America for that long?
So, yeah, when I went to the US, all the stories like Worried All, It Will Remain After a Fire, My Bones Hold a Stillness, stories which are away from home, were written in America because I was there, I was witnessing everything. It was very easy for me to capture. Then I had to move back to Pakistan to write everything. Now I'm working on a novel. And now that I'm in the UK and I'm in Manchester, I want to write. I was thinking of setting a chunk of it in the US. I was like, no, no, I'm going to write about Manchester and something about immigrants here because I'm very much immersed here. So distance does create a little bit of a barrier for me, to be honest. I need to
Hmm.
witness the scents, the smells, and just small little things that you notice. Your gardener is saying something in particular, and that thing might not come to you when you must be miles away. And then you think, oh, yeah, that was something my grandmother used to say. Your mom can say that, or she can pull up a shawl and it can smell a particular way. And I need to write that and translate that on paper. So I need to be in that physical setting for me to capture it fully. Distance does create dissonance in my brain. I haven't
Hmm.
achieved that meditative avatar state in which I can go. I haven't, honestly.
Can we talk about some of the serious themes that actually I don't think we can't not talk about them.
Yeah.
Two big themes emerge in all the stories. One is of grief,
Mm-hmm.
of various kinds, and the other is of death, and it comes up
Mm-hmm.
again and again. And Ashes, Wine, and Dust began with death also. Remember,
Yeah,
like there was the
literal
line
death.
that
Yeah.
Mariam had to give water to the mourners because the mourners were always
Yes.
thirsty.
Yes.
It's embarrassing that I remember these lines actually. Now that
Yeah.
I'm
I'm kidding. No, no, that's I'm actually flattered.
no, but it's that there is some form of death in every single story.
Yes.
Talk about that and talk about the grief. It's not a grief that is surface level also. It's a
Mm-hmm.
grief that persists and builds
Yeah.
into other things, sometimes resentment, sometimes awe, sometimes anger.
100%. So here in Ashes, Wine, and Dust, there was a literal death which haunts and lingers in the bones of the character. Here there's a lot of metaphorical death. So here's death of a relationship, or death of a belief system, or death of a friendship, or death of this l loving relationship with your birth city, and all of those things. So, well, in this particular book, I didn't want it to be so grand. I wanted to be very banal and unannounced. So death was emerging like a little shadow which was lingering in the spirit of all of these characters. Was it conscious? Yes, I think so. So, one of the things I even tell my fiction students that your characters should be haunted by something at least. They have to be broken people, and they're spending the entire narrative, they're spending the plot trying to fix themselves, resurrect. So, there has to be a little fracture inside of them. And that's what the reader wants to see. So, for me, death became that kind of a overarching theme in a way. It was deliberate, but I knew that it doesn't really have to be a literal death of a character. Uh, Ironically, in Ruby, someone's death actually makes Ruby very happy. And she's like, ah, finally, I'm done with that. So it had to be a metaphorical death in a way.
Though, now that you've mentioned Ruby, it ends. I've
Yeah, we
just
can't
remembered
tell
the
that.
ending.
Yeah,
It's
it was,
horrifying.
and it's like real life events. Yeah.
Yes, it really is. It
Yes.
really is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that for readers who or listeners who will be listening to this, all the names are unconnected, but Ruby is connected to Nuri in some way,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm really
Um,
particular about naming the characters. Are you this way? If I don't name them my characters, they don't talk to me properly. So if I'm calling Sarah Zara, she's not talking to me for 10 pages until unless I find the right name for my characters.
I
Very
know you are.
particular. Yeah, I
I know
am
you are.
so particular. See, in now My Bones Hold a Stillness, they might not be a very like proper fire theme, but then people don't know Nuri means light, Nuri means. So that is how the fire makes an appearance there. And I love the juxtaposition that her name meant the light, but she was staying up in a really rotting, dark, barsati up. So yeah, small little mind games you play with the reader, and you want the reader to dive into the layers.
Can you talk about love in the collection? Um, is love
Hmm.
implicit or does it have to be earned or willed, sometimes forgotten?
I honestly, that's such a good question, and I don't even know how to answer it because I never thought about love in any way. There are characters who are literally pining for love. In Ruby, there's a nice little crisp paragraph in which she's looking for love from her mother, and she wants to be in the folds of her mother's wing, and she says that love, she can't find that. In my in the last days of Bilqis Begum, towards the end, in the resolution, there's a whole paragraph about her being desperate for love, her finding love and seeing that there was no love anywhere. I honestly, for me, it was literally people finding love for themselves, kind of coming back home to themselves, understanding that everything cities, like it says, cities are unfaithful, relationships can be faithful. It's all a mirage, it's an illusion, and you have to just love yourself in a way. But interestingly, I've never asked me anything about the darker themes. I'll speak about it. But when it comes to love and stuff. Didn't really ponder on that. What did you think?
I thought love could be dark as well.
Yeah.
Um, and you see it shift. You see it shift, like at the very beginning. Annie talks about her grandfather who's just died.
Yes. And the lack of love.
By the Yes, but by the end, that love has turned into absolute resentment
Yeah, yeah,
because she has remembered a secret that her childhood self had buried,
yeah.
right?
Love
Um,
morphs in that way.
Nuri, Nuri loved
She's
the
so
male nurse,
desperate. Yeah, she's so
but
hungry for
then
it.
right, but then the minute Bilkis Bano told her that's not
Mm.
love, she
Yeah,
said yes, that's not love. So
yeah,
I suppose, well, how do we will love into our lives, right? A lot of the characters to me were asking that when you have it, it doesn't really feel like it's true,
yeah.
because it
Exactly.
wants
Yes.
something from you. It's not
Yes.
unconditional.
Yes.
When you don't have it, you pine after it. Even children in this book, Ruby's child, I don't remember her name now, but when she goes to the madam's house in
Yeah,
on
couple.
Mall Road,
Yeah,
yeah, she thinks that Kaval loves her,
yeah.
right? But is
But it's
that
very
love?
conditional. Yeah, love is
Yes,
very conditional
exactly.
here. Yeah. Even in Stray Things, Heather Ali's father's love is conditional. He has to be a
Hmm.
yes, sir, kind of a child for the father to love him back. The minute he shows a little sense of agency that, okay, we might not
Hmm.
be doing the right thing, the father starts shaming the child. Ruby
Hmm.
also, Kaval has to say a lot of yes. She has to give words of affirmation to her mother, who has vitiligo, and the mother who's going through a lot for her to feel that the mother trusts her more. And here also you can see that the adults in the relationships, like in Rani and in Ruby, and it will in My Bones Hold a Stillness, that these older women, they have carried the generational trauma to such a degree that it has manifested in these dark forms that these children now have to be the caregivers. So Kaval loves when her mother is broken because then the mother, she can hug her mother and the mother comes to the child for therapy and for seeking closure. Rani, she's taking care of her grandmother, bathing her dementia and everything, and kind of trying to atone her for her sins. Similarly, in My Bones Hold a Stillness, it's the first time ever that the mother does something so dark and so, you know, dastardly that it kind of shakes the entire system. So it also kind of shows you that the younger generation, because all the characters are quite young, they're in their 20s and 30s, that they're kind of removing themselves from the shackles, while as they're seeing these older women who are completely submissive and they're completely done in a way. They're either hysterical or they have, lack of a better word, gone mad in a way, or they are delusional and all of those things. I never thought about this. I just thought about this right now. It says stories of caregiving a lot.
Hmm. A lot of
Yeah.
caregiving.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
Begum,
think I
Bilkis
was
Begum
I was
also.
thinking a lot about it because I took care of my grandmother in the last
Yeah.
days of her life, and I mean, especially as the book opens, I could really relate to Annie,
Yeah.
really relate to Annie in a big way because all the things she's doing for a woman who will die soon, and she knows
Yeah.
it too. And I don't know, sometimes all the secrets that come out,
Yeah.
it, love is a really complicated thing, and it doesn't even have to be romantic. It's
Yes.
often not, right? The things you
It's
do
very
for people.
complicated.
There was a line in a book, Everything is Illuminated, and it was something like, one day I will do something that I hate for you because I love you, or something like that. You do the
Hmm.
things you hate for people
Hmm.
you love, something like he wrote it much better than I'm saying it. But it's exactly that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Anyway,
that
it
you
was
think
just a
about it.
thought in my head. Yeah, something for you to think about. Uh, I One last question before we go into a little bit of a lighter round
Mhm.
is what had you intended the reader to take away from the book when you put it together?
Do you think about reader when you're writing or when you're editing?
I so as I'm working, um, I always give myself a bit of distance between drafts so I have the chance to be a reader rather than
Yeah.
a complainer about my own writing or
Yeah,
like an
yeah,
editor of my
yeah.
own writing. But it's quite difficult actually. Though you do want you do want yourself to be able to get something out of the book, right? Like for me, I think
Yeah.
I'm able to read all of my books again and they still feel interesting to me.
Hmm.
Like, but I know that like when I was writing my novel, I knew that it meant that I had to show. Obviously, there's so much about India and Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Can't seem to get away from that. But it was to make people unlearn certain things about behavior that
Oh, that's
people on both
interesting.
sides of the border have carried, right?
Yeah.
And behavior is not undone in a single day or a single generation as well. It
Mm-hmm.
takes multiple generations for any kind of preconceived notions to break or the other to no longer be the other. So I think I wanted to show that, but I also wanted to show that how the deeds of one person in a single family can actually change the life of everyone who comes after,
Right.
right? And you either carry the trauma or you carry the
Mm.
benefit of that decision. But that's what I was hoping that the reader would take away.
Right. So when it comes to fiction, you can't really gauge what the reader will take away. Yeah, because they'll come with their own reservoir of experience and trauma and
Hmm.
understanding. I had the Western reader in mind for the very first
Hmm.
time.
How interesting. Wow.
For Ashes, Wine, and Dust, I just manifested a South Asian reader always because I was just so young and I just wanted to get published and everything. Here, I knew that my Pakistani or my South Asian audience are sorted. I knew they were sorted.
Hmm.
I knew they would understand. I knew they would see the cities. I knew they would see the familiar spaces. I
Hmm.
made sure that I did not paint any character as black and white. So the men
Hmm.
are not all wife beating stereotypical men. There are good men here as well. And I made sure I do that. So Babar, for instance, and Waridol in particular, is not really a bad man. He's just a busy man. And he's doing his PhD in a way.
Sort of seemed like a non-person to me.
He was very cardboard like, yeah. He was,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Similarly, then I gave Samuel's character, who was the only one who could understand Ruby
Hmm.
and could take her out of her trauma. Then, of course, in Bleak, he's Begum, the ex-lover, and all. And then in Carry It All, I made it a deliberate artistic choice to make sure to add that she had a father-in-law who used to be a good man, and she misses him now that he's gone. So small little things that I did to not paint all the characters. Then another thing I did, now I'm just speaking about the South Asian audiences. Another thing that I did, which was to kind of show people from all squares of life. I don't
Hmm.
want to be too distant to just, once again, you'll say you're dropping truth bombs, but usually, you know, how we make fun of some diaspora writers who just visit Pakistan once in 10 years and then they write about it. And it kind of shows because I live in Lahore and I know so much about the city and everything. So I knew that I had to paint people from all religions and I had to show all genders and I had to show all age ranges and everything. So I was very deliberate in that fashion. So I knew my South Asian audience was in a way sorted. Would they forgive me for writing a short story collection because they expected a novel from me? I do not know because once again, short stories are they're just this stepchild of the literary world, unfortunately, even though I think they're much harder to master. But this time,
Hmm.
for the first time, because I had an agent and I had a publisher already, so I was writing. I had the Western audience in mind. I wanted them to look at Pakistan not from a stereotypical lens, where I was showing women who were dealing with darker themes or they're going through distress, trauma, patriarchy, but I wanted to show resilient women as well. So I wanted to show somebody like Ruby, who is frivolous and promiscuous and is trying to find love and trying to negotiate space for herself within society. Then I also wanted to show somebody like in My Bones Hold a Stillness or in Worried All. So I wanted to show resilient female characters as well to make sure that Pakistani women are not pigeonholed as just this weeping, desperate women. So that was my intentional. So I would, yeah, so that I would want the reader to, I think, take that away, perhaps.
Hmm. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I have some light questions. Are you ready?
Oh,
Well, I don't know whether they're light or not. We'll see on your answers. Okay. I want to know about your writing routine. How do you make notes? Do you keep a notebook? What does it look like? You said you write everything down.
yeah. I have a notebook, absolutely, and it's really bizarre. It has the picture. It has So I have a vision board as well. So I will, if I'm writing a particular setting like a bungalow from 1930s, Mall Road, Lahore. So I'm going to print it out. I'm going to put it, and I'm going to keep looking at it, because that's going to be the physical space where my characters are. In my notebook, I'll write weird stuff. For instance, I'll write November 2025, saw blah 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 pigeon doing this and this. Then I went, if I go somewhere abroad, city center, I saw Queen Victoria statue, and it was there were so many pigeon droppings, which was like hilarious. So I wrote that. I saw, oh, one of my characters going to see that. So I make lots of notes. Sometimes I know
Hmm.
in which story I'm going to insert them in. Sometimes I keep them aside. For instance, the line from Bilqis Begum's, the first line, she came home to die. I was summoned to make the last days easier. I loved this line. I kept this line for a year, not knowing when I'm going to write it, but it was in my writer's notebook. Then I used it for this particular story. If there's a particular name I write. So I'm going to have really proper notes and everything. When
Hmm.
it comes to writing routine, I I wish I could say I write daily and I have that kind of discipline, but I do try to write daily, but I look at the quality of words. So I can write
Hmm.
300 really good words or one page. If I've written one page, I have accomplished everything. So you need a lot of discipline and a lot of
Hmm.
like strict
I think
regimen.
one time I wrote 1,500 words together and it was a shock to me, and they were all
How
good.
many?
And now I don't know if you're making fun of me to repeat it or not.
No, no, no. 15,000, 1,500?
Right,
That's
1,500.
not bad. That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
still
and
fine
no,
for
they
a
were
whole day.
good.
Yeah.
They stayed in the this. It was a few hours. It wasn't even the whole day.
Haha. Oh, wow.
I was shocked, and they stayed in the final draft.
No,
But
you
I'm
can
also
get that
very
burst
erratic like that.
of energy. Are
Yeah,
there some weeks and
yeah.
months in which you don't write at all? Like your brain is completely
So
stuck?
it really depends on whether I'm writing fiction or nonfiction. When I do
Oh,
nonfiction, I do all of my research
sure.
first, primary and secondary. Then I have to transcribe all that. Then I have to translate all that, and then I start writing. So actually, it may take 2 or 3 years into a project before I actually start writing.
Totally. Yeah.
But
But with
fiction,
fiction.
yeah, I think with fiction, it's really in spurts.
Hmm.
Because when you're
Same.
in the story, then time is meaningless,
Yeah.
right? But of course, there are days when you feel really divorced from the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, for sure. But I'm very much like you. I don't really count the number of words or anything. It's really the quality
Mhm.
of the
Yeah.
sentiment that comes through. Yeah.
And I'm very
Um,
good with
hmm,
revisions. If I write a page, I'll
hmm,
print it out the
hmm,
next day. I read it and I
hmm.
edit it. A lot of people write it, the entire thing, then print it out. I can't do that. I need to
Same,
hold
same.
the story from the very first line. Otherwise, it just
Hmm,
spirals out of control. Then you don't know which brick to,
hmm,
go back to which chapter and fix it.
hmm. I also don't send anything that could not potentially be a final draft to somebody. Like I'll edit and edit and edit myself, and I won't even
Same.
move on to the next word if I'm not happy with how it
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite part of being a writer?
Oh my God. Oh, I don't, do you enjoy being a writer, Anshul?
This is not a question for me.
Okay.
This is a question for you.
I don't know. Um, once,
Did you ask me if I enjoy being a writer?
yeah, I mean, I honestly, it's so hard. It's so
I
hard.
know, I know. It's so weird. I was going to say it's so difficult to suffer at the thing you have fought to do.
And
But
then your mood is
but there's
completely off for the
hmm.
entire day if it's a bad writing day and you can't
Oh,
tell
no,
that
see, that
it's
doesn't happen to me.
oh that
Yeah, that doesn't happen to me at all.
very
I
nice.
sort of like, I'm like, put it in a box, just don't touch it after that. I think I'm pretty sure I remember I told you also to just leave it.
Yeah, how can you do that? I'm like
It's
constantly
because there's
thinking
so
about it.
many. Well, I actually think it's because, like, if I'm not writing, then I'm pretty sure I have something to transcribe. I'm pretty sure there's a stray interview somewhere waiting for me. I have,
Yeah,
ex
sure.
that's it.
Non-fiction, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
So
I,
the most
I think
enjoyable,
it's a
yeah.
real luxury to be a writer, right?
Mm.
I'm actually like sometimes I'm shocked that that's the sole thing I need to do and I don't have any other job.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a luxury and
Yeah,
privilege, 100%. I
right.
haven't reached that nirvana yet. But
But what is your
for
favorite part?
my favorite part, honestly, is I hate the writing and editing process. I don't have fun. When I'm writing, it's so hard. You have to stitch
It
a
is
whole
hard.
word from scratch and
Mm,
everything.
I
Once the
agree.
story is done
Mm,
completely and it's published and you
mm.
hear it on an audiobook, somebody else
Oh,
reading it, or you read it out yourself, and everything is so like it's gelling and it's so beautiful and
mm,
it's been polished. I honestly can't believe that I wrote it.
mm,
And it you achieve that little sense of immortality for a bit that okay, these
mm,
words will outlast me. So I like the
It's sounding
finished
a bit
finished.
like Voldemorty to me right now.
Yeah, it's strange, but that's the only thing I enjoy when it's done and I'm done with
Mm.
the because the writing is
So
painful for me.
when you're done, is it out of your system as well?
Uh, It's actually out of my system. I'm able to move on like this. With Ashes, Wine, and Dust, I didn't. Once again, that was a novel. It's a sweeping story. You live with those characters for 10, 15 years. Uh, so that stayed. But the minute it was out, and by the time the book is out and you're knee deep in another book, and then you start doing the press for it, and then you have to go back into your notes and how did I write this in the first place? Yes, I'm able to actually move on from my previous text and
Mm.
quite swiftly actually. And it's I don't I don't know if it's such a good thing because when a reader comes and they speak to you about it and then you're thinking about the new book and you're cheating on that book with the new book.
Mm.
And what about you?
Mm.
Are you able to escape the book once it's done?
No, because I think my books have a lot of intertextuality. They
No,
like
the
one thread
fiction,
will
not the
with
nonfiction.
fiction still, I
Still,
think still it
it
has
stays with you.
many similar themes, yes. I have really consciously tried to stop talking about my earlier books because I'm really embroiled in research for a new book. So
Yeah.
that would mean for me no press engagements, no
Yeah,
interviews.
totally understandable.
It's very complicated and I get confused and I
Yeah,
also don't think that I'm doing justice to any, right, you know.
right.
I was going to ask you what's your least favorite part of being a writer, but I guess that's the writing.
Uh, it's really, I love thinking of the story. It's really difficult to write. See, there's so many mechanics, there's so many
Mm,
fundamentals and invisible layers that you're taking. Like, for instance, the
mm,
characters and when the dialogue has to come, and then there's a host of characters. You have to look at everybody's arcs, and if
mm,
there's, like you said, a totem or symbol, how is it emerging, and all of those
mm,
things. It's it's really fun when you write that one beautiful line and you read it by the end of the day or that one gorgeous page. But most of the time, I'm just racking in my brain and I'm just like, oh, what am I going to do? And I'm just like mapping and mind mapping. And there has to be some element of fun. Maybe that's why I keep going back to it. I've never abandoned it because I don't see myself
mm,
doing anything permanent in life than just writing and
mm,
writing and writing. But
mm.
it's grilling. It's also very confrontational. It opens a lot of doors.
Of course, as it
Yeah.
should, though,
Yeah.
as it should. Hmm. Do you have any superstitions about writing? This seems like you
So
would. Like you have
I
you have
seem
these little superstitions in your life. So
Like what? Like, do you have any superstitions in your life?
God, no. Well, it's not a
You're
superstition,
more
but
pragmatic than me.
maybe, but it's not a superstition at all. But I do have an it's sort of like a it's a non-negotiable for me.
Hmm.
When I'm writing, I have to read it out loud. There is no
Oh,
other way of
same,
doing it.
same.
Yeah, you will
100%.
never see me sitting in a cafe writing my first draft.
Oh,
It's
no,
never gonna
no.
happen.
I don't know how people are
So,
writing in Starbucks and stuff like that. And never. I have to be by myself in a room. It has to be very
hmm,
quiet for me, and I have to play a certain kind of music
hmm.
also.
Okay, what kind of
Yeah.
music?
There, it has to be some like instrumental, like
Hmm.
Hans Zimmer or some classic Ravi Shankar or something. No lyrics, nothing. It has to be played at a certain decibel and a little further
Is this
away.
a,
Yeah, but then I
but you don't
also
have
need
any
my
like
workout.
quirky habits as you do?
There's just one thing that I've learned, and maybe it's a superstitious, it's just don't talk about the work when it's still in the embryonic stage. I
Yeah,
just
of course.
like don't because don't say "Okay, I'm working on this and it'll be out then and all of that stuff. Just
Hmm.
when the first draft is done and you know that this book might see the light of day, then start talking about it. But when it's in the very early initial stages, pata nahi, I feel like, buri nazar, whatever. But I just don't talk about it when it's still in the initial stages.
Hmm.
But now, with the when the book is bought and now the announcements are made 2 years prior, this is the first time I'm encountering that, then the pressure is real. Then you have to talk about it. And now I don't know, this is the first time I'm experiencing this. Let's see. It'll be out there in the world.
I did
Yeah.
have a question about what you're working on next, but you don't have to answer it.
Yeah,
But it's a
okay.
novel. You are working on a novel, right?
Yes, it's a novel.
Hmm.
I'm kind of done with short stories for a bit. I might just write it on a
Hmm.
side when I'm working, but yes, it's a novel and I'm very, very excited about it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that feeling when you're super excited. Like, I think for me, like when I dream about the text,
Yeah.
and I wake up in the morning thinking about the text,
Oh,
that's when you know
100%.
you're truly in it, and
Yeah.
it's like those days are delight, like the true
100%.
delight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Kansa, those were all of my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you so
loved reading
much.
the book. I loved it by just the sheer number of times I read it, but I just feel like it's been such a joy to see you work on different things throughout your career, and to be able to discuss them both as a writer and a colleague and a friend
Yeah.
and just like a person, a sister, a you person.
Well, thank you so much
Um,
for helping me navigate all of this. Because, as writers, we are very solitary creatures and you need a soundboard to understand
my pleasure,
certain
entirely.
negotiations around the industry and, of course, the writing process itself. So, thank you so much for today.
My pleasure. Okay, Anushka, I think we're done. Come on
Thank
back.
you, guys. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I've learned so many things today into the creation of the characters in Kanza's short stories and also your writing processes. And this was amazing. This was amazing to have
Thank
you
you so
guys on
much.
Half a Broadcast. Thank you so much again for being here. And to all the Half Broadcast audiences, for more conversations like these with some of the leading voices in literature from across the world, stay tuned. And yeah, just very excited to have you both here again with hopefully very soon, hopefully with more of your works. So yeah,